Hey guys, back here with Data-Driven Deer Logs Part 3. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use data validation to ensure you don't make any data input errors in your spreadsheet. And I'm also going to show you how to write a formula to retrieve weather data from multiple zip codes, or if you have multiple NOAA data sets for different areas of your state or different areas of the country for that matter. So the first thing we're going to do is show you how to use data validation to ensure you don't make any mistakes entering data into your spreadsheet. So I've gone ahead and made a data validation tab already. If you haven't, you're going to want to make a new tab for your data validation values. So here's what mine looks like. I've already went ahead and retrieved weather data from 3 different locations in Montana: Belgrade, Billings, and Butte. And I've also made a couple fictitious stand names here from popular hunting beast members. And I've also entered a couple fictitious camera placement names. And with each of these, I've associated them to one of my weather data locations. So you can see here, that's where that location is. That's going to come into play in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this column heading. So Control C. And I'm going to paste this into my hunting log as a new column. I'm going to make sure I don't ever enter these standard camera names wrong. For example, I don't want to put Dan's Place instead of Dan's Lair, because I'm going to use this standing camera name as a lookup value here in a minute. So the first step is to highlight a range, and I recommend that you highlight past where your current observations are, and I'm actually going to go down several rows past. If you plan on entering 100 or 200 observations a year, you might want to go 500 rows past, but just for this example, I'm just going to go a few rows past. And then up on the Data tab in the Excel ribbon, go ahead and click Data. And there's an option under the Data tab right here called Data Validation. Let's go ahead and click that with a left click. Right now it's going to allow us any value, but we don't want any value. We want only our stand names or camera names. So if you click the drop down, there's this List option. Go ahead and select List. And then you have to enter a source. So click in the source box, make sure your cursor's highlighted in there. And then go ahead and click on your Data Validation tab and highlight all of your standard camera names. Once you've done that, go ahead and click OK. And as you can see now, I have a drop down box here. What this is going to allow me to do is click a drop down, and now I can pick wherever I hunted: Dan's Lair, or I could select field edge camera if this was a camera observation. And because I already have all of these filled out from a previous example, I'm just going to make all of these field edge cam for now. Now our next step is going to be to insert another column, and this is going to be the location column. So I'm going to go ahead and insert this between E and F. Now I want my same heading that I have in my data validation, so I'm going to go there and copy this location heading, put that in my hunt log. So once we've added this location column, we want to do a vlookup formula. And in this vlookup formula, we're going to look up the standard camera name. When we find that, we want to return its corresponding location. I've already done a video on this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'll put a link in the description to the earlier vlookup video. We're going to do a vlookup. We want to look up our standard camera name. We want to look it up on our data validation tab. So this is going to be our lookup table. Remember to hit F4 here to lock your table. I'm going to move to the next part of the formula, which is the column index number. Remember, the column numbering is based off your table lookup, and we started in C, so C would be column 1, D would be column 2. So we're going to enter 2. And our range lookup, we want an exact match here, so we're going to enter false. Go ahead and close your parentheses. Enter. And this is formatted as text right now. I need to highlight all of these, change them to general. Once I change to general, if I click in the formula bar and hit enter, my formula should work now. Okay, now it says my field edge cam is in Butte. Go to data validation, double check that. field edge cam. It is indeed in Butte, so we're all set there. So now I'm going to go back to the hunt log. Now we have a stand name and a corresponding location. And the nice thing about this is we did a vlookup, so if we change our stand name to, let's say, a lockdown swamp, that's also in Butte. Let's go to Predator TC's tree. That'll change to Billings. So if we go back and look, Predator TC's tree, that's in Billings. So our formula is working correctly. The other good thing about this is, let's say I manually entered Predator TC's tree, but I forgot the T in Predator. I hit enter, it's going to give me an error. And because it doesn't match anything that I've said it has to match in my list, it won't let me enter it. So I can go ahead and hit cancel, and it'll default back to the correct value. So once you have this formula written, you can just go ahead and copy it down. So here I've already entered some new actual observation dates and some actual observation times. Now I'm going to enter where these new observation times occurred, whether that was a stand or a camera, and I'm just going to make these up here as I go. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and copy my location formula down. And that'll automatically enter all my locations for me, so that's going to save me time right there. The next part of the video is going to be showing you how to use an if formula combined with vlookup formula. And the goal of this is going to be, whenever we have location Butte, we're going to want to retrieve weather data from the Butte tab. Or whenever we have location Billings, we're going to want to retrieve data from the Billings tab. And whenever we have location data Belgrade, we want weather data from the Belgrade NOAA tab. So to understand how this works, first I'm going to show you the if formula and give you a real simple example. So all formulas start with equals, so equals if, open the parentheses. And here we have a logical test, and we're going to test a cell to see if it meets a condition. So in this case, we want to test our location cells. So for this specific example, we want to test the cell adjacent to our dry bulb temperature. So we want to test cell F10 in this example, which says Butte, and we want to see if that is equal to our data validation tab. And we're going to select Butte also, and hit F4 because we want to lock this locations on our data validation tab in our if formula. So once we hit F4, you'll see the dollar signs appear up here. And hit comma. Now if this is true, we want to say correct. And to do that, we're going to enter a quote, type in the word correct in the quote. And then if it's not correct or false, we want it to say incorrect. So we're going to do a comma to move to the next part. Quote marks, incorrect. End your quotes and close your parentheses and enter. And because we're testing to see if this cell equals Butte, if it's true, which in this case it is, it's going to say correct. But now if we drag this formula down, this cell does not equal Butte, so it's going to be false, or it should tell us incorrect. So that's the basic idea of how the if formula works. Basically, it tests a cell to see if a condition is true or false, and then it returns a value. But it returns more than just text. We can have this return formulas or other information. And in this case, when we find Butte, we're going to have it return a vlookup value for the Butte NOAA data tab. So here's what that formula would look like. And we're going to do this one part at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and clear these. I'm going to start with an if. Open my parentheses. Again, we want to test if this cell, F10 in this case, equals Butte. And we need to hit F4 here to lock this, comma. Now in this case, if it's true, we want it to look up the hourly dry bulb temperature on the Butte weather data tab. So once you've hit your comma here after your logical test, we actually want to enter a vlookup formula. This is going to be nested inside the if function. Once you've entered vlookup, you have to open your parentheses. And what do we want to look up? We're always going to search by this combined date and NOAA time. So I want to select the date and time wherever that is in your spreadsheet. Where do I want to look that up? I want to look up because I'm looking for Butte here. I'm going to hit a comma. My table array is going to be my entire NOAA data for Butte. So click that tab. And this is a refresher, but you want to make sure that you start in column B because that's where our date and time lookup occurs. So I'm going to go ahead and select B1, Control Shift over. That'll take me to the last column with data, and then Control Shift down. That'll take me to the last row of data. Once I have that whole table selected, be sure to hit F4 to lock your table. I'm going to move to your column index number. I know my hourly dry bulb temperature from doing this earlier is located in column 43, so I'm going to enter column 43, comma, and here I'm going to enter true because I might not have an exact date and time, so I want to find the closest date and time in my NOAA data. True, close my parentheses. That's just my value if it's true, so I need to add one more close parentheses. And I hit enter there too quickly, but it'll say, do you want to accept this correction? Yes, I do. And that's telling me for Butte on October 25th at 8:25 in the morning, it was -1 degrees, pretty chilly. So that formula is going to return me only Butte data. So if I drag this formula down the rest of this column here, I'm going to get some false answers in my cells. And the reason these are false is because they're either Billings or Belgrade. So the next step in the formula is going to show you how to incorporate these two. So I'm going to go back to this formula that I just completed. So I'm going to undo where I dragged the formula down. And I click back in the formula bar between my last two end parentheses. It's still saying my value if true. So if I hit a comma here, my value if false, and it'd be false if it didn't equal Butte. So if it's Billings or Belgrade, that's false. So I want to do another if formula here. So I'm going to type in if, open a parentheses. Now my logical test is going to be, does this cell equal Billings? So click on the cell, but make sure you click on the cell that's adjacent to it in the same row. Don't click in the Billings cell, click in the Butte cell again. So our logical test is going to be if this cell equals, now we want to do Billings, so go to your data validation tab, select Billings, F4 to lock that, comma, and now we're going to do a vlookup for Billings, because if this equals Billings, we want to look up Billings weather. So go ahead and do a vlookup, open your parentheses. What do we want to look up? Again, we're always searching or looking up by our date and time. So select cell D10 in this case, comma to move to the next part. Now here, table array, we want to look up Billings data. So we're going to go to our NOAA data for Billings. Again, remember it's important that you start in column B because B has the date and time. If you start in A with station IDs, you're going to get an error. So I'm going to select here in cell B2, Control Shift over, Control Shift down, F4 to lock my table, comma to move to the next portion of the formula. And our column index number, again, we know it's in column 43, our dry bulb temperature, so we're going to enter 43. And because we might not have an exact date and time match, we want to enter true here for a close match, or approximate match. And now it's saying I have an error. I needed 3 close parentheses at the end. I only have 1, so I'm going to accept this correction. And again, it's given me the same answer before, which is good. because before we just looked up Butte, but now we're looking up Butte and Billings. So when I drag this formula down, I should get an answer or a value returned for Butte and Billings, but I should still get false in Belgrade because I don't have Belgrade in the formula yet. So I'm going to drag this down just to show that. And as predicted, we have false in Belgrade, but we do have data now for Billings and Butte. And that's going to be weather data for Butte off the Butte weather sheet and for Billings off the Billings weather sheet. So I'm going to Control Z to undo here. If I go back into the formula bar, now I need to enter one more if formula because I have an if formula for if it's Billings and an if formula for if it's Butte, but now I need one for Belgrade. So I'm going to go ahead and click here between the first and second close parentheses. And as you can see, it's saying value if true. Well, I need one more value if it's false, because if it's not Butte and it's not Billings, it's going to be Belgrade, and Belgrade still isn't in here, so that's going to be our next portion of the formula. So enter a comma. I'll move to value if false, and again, we're going to do an if formula here. If, open your parentheses. In this case, we want to test the cell F10 again, but in this case, we want it to be equal to Belgrade. Let's go ahead to your data validation tab, select Belgrade. Again, make sure you hit F4 to lock your selection. So now you have your logical test, comma, value if true. This is where your vlookup formula comes in again. So vlookup, open your parentheses. With our lookup value, as always, it's going to be on our hunt log. It's going to be our date and time. So click your date and time. Table array. Now in this case, we've already done Butte and Billings, so our table array is going to be our Belgrade data. Go ahead and click on the Belgrade tab. Again, make sure you're going to column B because that's where your date and time first appears. So I'm going to select cell B1 here, Control Shift over, Control Shift down, hit F4 to lock my table. Comma, column index number, again, dry bulb temperatures in column 43, comma, I want a close match or approximate match, so I'm going to hit true, close my parentheses, and then I need to close them one more time. I need 4 in this case. I'm going to hit enter, and again, -1, that's correct, that's what we've been retrieving each time, but now when I drag the formula down, I should have a value for each of my locations, one for Butte, Billings, and Belgrade now. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this down. So there you go. That's how you can use an if formula combined with vlookup, or in this case, several if formulas and several vlookups to retrieve data from multiple tabs on your spreadsheet or multiple locations. Once you figure out how to write these nested if functions, you can do the same thing for your hourly station pressure or any other variable in your spreadsheet. It's a little more labor intensive up front, but once you've done this, it's very easy to add a new entry. I'll go ahead and show that now. Let's assume I had an observation on December 11th. I'd go ahead and enter my actual observation date. And remember, it's got to be in the year, month, day format. 11th, and let's say I saw a buck at 9 o'clock. Let's make it 9:03 just for fun. Once I've done that, my date and time automatically populated. And I actually need to enter 09 over here. Once I've done that, I just have to pick where I had this observation. Let's say it's a trail camera at the field edge. Pick that, and then I can just highlight my location and my hourly dry bulb temperature, because these both have formulas, copy them down, and it'll automatically populate what location it was and what dry bulb temperature was that day. If you had 7 or 8 variables over here, you would highlight all of them and copy the formula down, and then it would automatically populate all these different variables. Again, a little more work up front, but that's a way to retrieve weather data from multiple locations if you're hunting multiple different zip codes or different states for that matter. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks.